Welcome back to another episode of The Spirit Inside. This is my second episode after a bit of a hiatus, so still trying to get in the groove. Proof of that is that this is kind of actually a take two of this because I had audio issues. So some of the packaging stuff I already undid, unfortunately, but it's okay. We're gonna go on and continue on from there. Today's episode is a brand with literally hundreds of years of history. Obviously I can't cover all of that, and I don't even want to attempt that. But it's fine because this brand has a lot of different products to try out. So I'll give you today kind of like the highlight or the Cliff Notes version. And then hopefully on future episodes when I visit this brand, we'll fill in the gaps as we go. Today's brand is Glenmorangie. And yes, I had to look up a pronunciation guide and I'm probably gonna still get it wrong from time to time, so don't kill me on that. So they're known for producing single Scotch malts, various years and in different wood caskets. For today's product from Glenmorangie, I think they have a Nectar d'Or. That's what this particular one is. It's aged 10 years in American white oak caskets. Then it's aged 2 years in Santorin's wine caskets. Probably messing that up too, sorry about that. And then it goes through a non-chill process. That's what's unique about today's particular brand item that we're talking about here. Like I said, the history for Glenmorangie is long and extensive, so I can only cover a portion of it in this particular video. Like I said, it's just kind of the quick Cliff Notes version of it. We're gonna start with William Matheson and his wife, Anne. So what's difficult about giving any history about this particular brand is just that they're like so many other brands, they have like multiple variations on their history. The one I'm gonna go with is one that's from their official website from them, just because I found it to be the most consistent and accurate from what I can tell and what I felt was like the most true. But I'll hint on what some of the other differences are. Now, the farm where the current production is at used to be a brewery in 1703. William Matheson was the former distillery manager for this brewery, and then he bought the farm and converted it to a distillery in 1843. So when he started this distillery, he decided to give it the new name of Glenmorangie. And now the establishment date is in 1843, but operations didn't really start until 1849. The Matheson family owned it until 1887, and then they sold it to the Matlin brothers. After World War I, the brothers in 1918 sold it to their biggest customer, MacDonald and Muir and Durham. It's a whiskey dealing company. So eventually, MacDonald and Muir, they bought out Durham and gained full control of the distillery. I'm gonna point out real quickly, this is where you get some variations in the history of this company. For example, there's a version where the Matlin brothers are the ones who came up with the company name Glenmorangie when they bought the distillery from William. So it wasn't William who named it Glenmorangie. In other versions, it's William who sold the company directly to MacDonald and Muir and Durham, and the Matlin brothers are not even part of the story. There are other contradictions concerning the timeline and things, but like I said, the version I'm gonna go with is the Matheson family sold it to the Matlin brothers, and then the Matlin brothers sold it to MacDonald and Muir and Durham, and then Durham got bought out by the other partners. And then from there, the history seems to be consistent and doesn't change from different sources. So while luckily from that point on, the history is consistent, unfortunately for Glenmorangie, the next little bit of history is 1931. Unfortunately, because this is when the Great Depression starts and when American Prohibition really starts hurting their sales. They had to close down for 5 years and then they reopened in 1936. And then production started again, but then World War II forced a second closure from 1941 until 1944. So for nearly 90 years, MacDonald owned the brand, and then 2004, that's when they sold it to Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton. If that name sounds kind of familiar, probably the Hennessy part, or maybe the Louis Vuitton part. The only thing to really touch on there at this point is that that's what they know. It's a conglomerate. It's known as a life and luxury lifestyle brand. So they don't really specialize in any one particular category or product. It's just anything that's high-end and fashionable, so clothes, perfumes, high-end perfumes, liquors, things like that. So like I said, there's a lot of history, and then when you throw in the variations at the very beginning, there's a lot more to possibly go over. Like I said, I'm gonna kind of hold off on that. I like to explore that in some other future videos. But for now, let's get into the review. So a real quick thing to point out is that this was a gift from my cousin, either for my birthday or from a previous Christmas. I don't know, it's been so long. I've been sitting on this script and on this product for a while. My impression from just doing the research is that I'm really impressed. They just seem to have a really cool product line, so I'm really looking forward to this. Like I said, there were a little bit of audio issues, so I've already unsealed the bottle, unfortunately, but I don't think it's going to really affect anything. So let's start with the packaging. They have both a box and a bottle. So starting with the box, like I said, through my first dry run of this, is that I like the packaging. It's very classy. You know, it's got gold. It's trying to evoke luxury, high-end. The only kind of maybe downside is a little bit monochromatic, but overall I like it. They do find neat ways of breaking it apart when you look it up in close. So this is Glenmorangie's the brand. I think this particular bottle I got here, they call it the Nectar d'Or. Probably something again I'm gonna butcher, sorry about that. And yeah, it's really classy. It's got some really basic information on here about, you know, the cask and how they use the white oak from white American oak and then the wine cask. And it's very nice. I already know that I like the bottle. Like I said, this is my second time opening this. What I mentioned previously in the first attempt at this was that I like when things are simple to get into. If you, because I'm referencing my Jaeger tea episode, which I like the product, but didn't like the packaging. It was a little bit overcomplicated. This is simpler. The only kind of thing that I dinged it for that I mentioned earlier, I'm going to mention it again, is that the cap here is, it's not that it's bad, but it's just plastic instead of a full cork or a metal or something higher end material. But it's got a really cool raised lettering of the brand and the date it's established. But it does have a cork. And so this had a nice seal on it, easy to get into. And then so from there, so I give the packaging a nice solid 4. And then for the smell, still kind of holds true even though I've opened it, is that it's got a nice floral smell. Very light, not overpowering, not in the bottle at least. And it's also, you can also smell the woodiness of the, I'm guessing the oak and I guess maybe even the wine casket. I'm not sure, I'm not familiar with the smell of the wine casket they mentioned. It's finished in rare Sauternes or Sauternes casks. I don't know what that wood would smell like, but I'm familiar with what oak smells like, and I definitely smell that in there. It's got an overall floral and woody smell. And I already have a pour for my first attempt at this. And the only thing that really changes once you pour it out and let the air get to it, still got that light floral and woody smell, but now there's a little bit of the alcohol-y, like, not that it's a bad thing, but kind of like rubbing alcohol, it's that alcohol smell, but it's not overpowering. It kind of blends in nice together. And it's just another element once you get it poured. And I gave that, I believe, also a solid 4 as far as the aroma. The appearance then of the actual liquor, I mentioned that in the bottle, it's a little bit darker. It's all obviously concentrated. It kind of reminds me of a light olive oil. The color of the liquor itself is probably what inspired the packaging. It's got this nice gold color to it, a little bit of amber. But once you pour it, it becomes much lighter. But again, it's even more of a golden color. And that's probably what inspired the packaging. And so so for the appearance from that, I gave that a solid 4 as well. So then flavor, my favorite part. I already know what this is going to taste like. The taste is much like the aroma. That initial flavor is very light, floral, woody. I smell the oak, or taste the oak, because I'm familiar with that. Maybe I'm tasting the other wood casket, the wine one. But then on the back end, that burn from the alcohol comes in. It's not unpleasant, I like it, but I feel like that front end flavor is just a little bit too light, and then it gets overpowered by the back end, slightly more burn taste. So that one, I give it a little bit of a lower score of 3.5. It's still good, it's still a respectable score, but I wish I could have had that front end either last a little bit longer and not be so overpowered by the back end burn flavor. Maybe if the front end light flavor wasn't quite so light. The mouthfeel, it's very light. I always have trouble showing the oils in this. The oils are sticking, but they're not super heavy and thick. So I think that's to this benefit for this particular one, just because I feel if the oils and the mouthfeel was more intense, it's probably gonna favor that burn, and then you'd have that hanging around more than what I would like. I don't think it would to be its benefit. Like I said, the front end is nice, but it's so light and so quick and so overpowered by the back end flavor. I don't think if this was any heavier as far as the mouthfeel, that would enhance it in the right way. I think it probably enhanced the wrong thing. So I will give that also a solid 4, just because it's working in, I think, the right way. Yeah, very light, doesn't stick to your teeth or your gums, anything like that. The buzz factor. Now that I had a few more sips of this, I have a better understanding of this. My first impression was that, even though I've never had this before, is that it's pretty potent. Just having a few sips before, like I already feel it's doing its thing, making me feel warm, giving me a little bit of a buzz. Since I had to do this a second time and I had a few more sips, I can definitely say for sure, yeah, this is very potent. Maybe not crazy potent, it's not gonna be, I think, a 5. I think before I gave this a solid 4, but I think I'm gonna give this a 4.5. It's definitely a sipping whiskey. You don't wanna just shoot this. First of all, it's too high-end and classy for that. I mean, if you're gonna do shoot your whiskey, get some other low-end thing, you know. This is meant to be enjoyed. You do a pour shot and you take your time with it. And you probably should, just because I can tell that this thing's got some kick to it. So yeah, solid 4.5 on the buzz factor. Yeah, super over the top, but it's strong, it's potent. So overall, I mean, this has gotta be, I would say, at least a solid 4. Maybe like 4.5 even. Kind of figured I was gonna like this when I first opened the package, and then now that I had to do this part a second time, I definitely know I'm gonna enjoy this. But then that brings us to the mix section, which for some hardcore fans of this brand, that's gonna be sacrilege, because like I said, it's a sipping whiskey. You know, meaning you maybe add like a splash of water, maybe you do it with ice or you drink it neat, but the heck with it. Even though it's a sipping whiskey, let's see how it does in a mix. So let's head on to the mix section. So for this mix, I found on the Rum Howler blog. I have a link in the description below. And they had 2 versions of the same mix, but in both cases it's called the Golden Nectar. Both versions are mostly the same, with only the difference being a 1 ingredient substitution and a pouring into a different glass. As always, let's start with the ingredients. The first ingredient would be Glenmorangie's Nectar d'Or. The next ingredient is fresh orange juice. I'm just going to use packaged orange juice for myself. The next ingredient is fresh lime juice. And again, I'm just going to have some prepackaged juice. But the next ingredient is where you'll have to make a choice. In one version, you can use simple syrup or ginger ale. I guess if you're daring, you could try using both. But for myself, I'm just going to use ginger ale. The other ingredient we need is ice. Like in so many of these mixes, they don't really specify how much or what style, so just use your best judgment. The equipment list is also simplistic, but also not exactly clear. The first piece of equipment we need is a metal shaker. I'll have to substitute my glass shaker. For the simple syrup version, there's no specific glass mentioned, but from the images on the blog, it looks like we are meant to use a glass with a fluke or something similar. For the ginger ale version, it's meant to be poured into a highball glass, but unless you're using an excessive amount of ice, I don't think it matters too much. I myself am going to go with a shorter rock glass. A simple set of ingredients and equipment needs, but a little unclear. But let's get into the next section where we put it all together. The first thing we will need is 2 ounces of Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or, and all the ingredients will be going directly into the shaker filled with ice. And again, to be clear, there's no specific amount of ice or style of ice to use, so just use your best judgment. But next is half an ounce of orange juice, fresh squeezed or otherwise. Next, we need to pour in half an ounce of lime juice into the shaker. Again, you can use fresh squeezed lime juice or prepackaged like I am here. For the ginger ale version, they don't specify how much you need, so I guess you can just do it to taste. But for the simple syrup version, they had 1 tablespoon. Now why they switched from ounces to tablespoon is also confusing, but I use this measurement as a basis for how much ginger ale to add. After you have all the ingredients in the shaker, just give everything a good vigorous shake. Again, these recipes never really specify for how long, but I would imagine a good 15 to 30 seconds is good enough. And after you're done with the shaking, we just strain into our glass. The mix doesn't specify to put ice in your glass, but judging from the images from the blog, you can add ice to keep everything chilled. And that is how you make one version or another of the Golden Nectar. And we're back, and that is how you make one of 2 versions of the Golden Nectar. Something really quick that I realized just now as I did the mix and coming back is that mix is kind of similar to the history of Glenmorangie, in that it's kind of hazy. It's not all the details are clear, and not sure, what is what. Just like there's multiple lineages of how the name came about and who was sold to and how it got to the point that it is today. This mix, and it wasn't clear on the, what glass and the ingredients to use. Is a little hazy. Just thought that was kind of interesting. So for the review for this, let's again start with aroma. I don't really smell any of the previous floral or wood smell. All I really smell is orange juice. Well, let me take that back. Okay, there's orange juice with a little bit of that floral smell. None of the woodiness there, none of the oak or the wine cask there. Is that good or bad? I mean, I like the smell of orange juice, and having that little floral snuggle or slightly over the top is nice. I'll give that a solid 4. The appearance, I mean, it's not bad by any means. There's nothing really extraordinary looking at it in the glass. Just give that a solid 3. So now the important part, the flavor. This is terrible. So yeah, maybe the hardcore fans are right. This should be strictly used as a sipping scotch, a sipping whiskey. I thought this would go well in this mix, but honestly, no. It almost doesn't have any taste. And what taste is there is kind of that sour, kind of skanky. Luckily, it's very light and doesn't last long and goes over really quick. It's almost drinking a glass of water with a weird kind of citrusy flavor to it. That's about it. That's disappointing, but yeah, I'm gonna give that a solid 1. Mouthfeel, it's light and refreshing. I guess that's a good thing. It's not particularly hot when I'm recording this, but if it was during hotter times, at least this would feel like it would cool me down, like a glass of water. Got a little bit of the floral taste, but now it's just kind of, the way it's mixing with the citrus, it's kind of, again, not necessarily sour, but kind of somewhere between sour and skanky. The buzz factor, I think it's been weakened. It's been so watered down between, the ginger ale and the lime and the orange juice. Even though there's 2 ounces of the Scotch in here, it doesn't seem potent at all. I'm gonna give that a 1. So yeah, the hardcore fans of this brand are right. It's a sipping whiskey. Probably not best used for a mix, at least not this mix. That's my bad. Yeah, I'm gonna really struggle to drink this, but I don't like whiskey. Wasting whiskey. Maybe it does have a little bit of a buzz factor. I'm starting to slur my speech a little bit. Strong in its own. Definitely enjoy it straight or with ice or neat, maybe with a splash of water. Would not recommend this mix, the Golden Nectar. I'm gonna finish this out. I'm gonna try to pronounce the name one more time. This is Glenmorangie's Nectar d'Or Scotch Whiskey. I enjoyed it straight. Disappointed with my mix that I got here, unfortunately. And just to recap, the history of, especially the beginning history, is very hazy. Hopefully I'll pick up some of the other scotches and fill in some of the gaps as we go along. I'll try to give you good, accurate information, but if you we've got some documentation, something you can point to, leave it in the comments and let me know. Just remember to enjoy the spirits inside responsibly. And hopefully something better than this mix.